What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's transfer tips for game week 25. So I'm going to go through some of the popular players being moved in or out of people's squads and give my opinion on whether they are good moves or not, and also talk about a couple of transfers that went through yesterday. So let's get into it. So let's start with Wirtz and Ekitike. I know a lot of people sold them last week, and maybe people were planning to sell them this week as well, but because they did so well last game week, maybe some people have changed their mind. So what should you do with them? For game week 25, I would say they're in don't buy, don't sell territory. So if you've got them, there's no need to rush them out, because although it's Man City at home, afterwards you've got Sunderland away, Forest away, West Ham at home, Wolves away, Spurs at home. So the fixtures between 26 and 30 are quite good, but I also wouldn't buy them because on paper, Man City at home is not a great fixture. Could Liverpool score 1 or 2 goals in that game? Of course, but it's not really a fixture to target. So probably don't buy, don't sell, unless on the don't sell part, you need the money for an upgrade elsewhere that's more important, or if they're blocking a spot in a certain position. So for example, let's say Arsenal beat Chelsea tonight, and you know Arsenal are going to double. You're sat on double defence, but you need to get a triple up on Arsenal in, and Wirtz is the only midfielder you can sell for Declan Rice, then I would probably do it. But for everyone else that doesn't have a need to sell him or need the money, I would probably just keep hold of him. After game week 25, like I said, the fixtures are quite good for Liverpool. I think you can consider Wirtz. I'm still not sure I would buy Ekitike. Partly because if you're getting him, you're probably selling another forward that's cheaper, which is enabling more funds elsewhere, or you're having to make a double move to shift funds from midfield to forwards. And I just don't think that's worth it. Like, we know that Ekitike can be really good. He showed that last week. But I still look at him as an 8.8 million forward, no penalties, and there is some risk to his minutes. I think the issue with trying to buy him now is you're not quite sure what that risk really is. He's not going to get benched every other week. So between game weeks 26 to 30, he may start all 5. He may start only 4. Is that enough? If he gets benched once in those 5 game weeks between 26 and 30, is he that good to buy him? I don't think he is. And that slight risk of a benching is what would put me off getting him. And it's really annoying because I don't think he's going to get benched that much. Like, they need to manage him because they don't have another number 9, but they also need to play him because they don't have another number 9. So I think he will play a lot, but maybe not enough to buy him. So if you've got him, by all means, keep hold of him if you don't need the money for another move, because he's going to become somewhat of a differential because most of us are not going to bring him in. But I'm not sure I would buy him. Whereas with Wirtz, I think you can be pretty confident in his minutes at the moment. If Frimpong comes back fit at some point soon, then Szoboszlai goes into midfield, and maybe then there's a minutes risk with some of the forwards, because obviously at the moment Gakpo's playing on the left, Salah on the right, Ekitike through the middle, and Wirtz number 10. If Szoboszlai goes back into midfield, then maybe Wirtz gets shunted out to the left, maybe Gakpo plays instead. But Wirtz's minutes just seem really good at the moment, and he's playing well. It's starting to click with him. So I don't think he's coming out. I think his minutes are pretty good and probably better than Ekitike's. The other thing I don't mind about buying Wirtz over Ekitike is, let's say things go wrong, he gets injured or you just want to sell him. There are so many midfielders to move to. Whereas with forwards, it's not the case. Whenever someone needs to sell a forward to someone else, it always feels like a struggle to figure out who to buy. Whereas if you need a new midfielder right now, I could list off like 10 names who are all good picks. So if you've got them, keep them. I wouldn't buy them for game week 25. I think Wirtz from 26 onwards is worth considering. I probably wouldn't get Ekitike unless it's a one transfer move and the forward you're getting rid of is really just no good. Let's talk about Chelsea players next, specifically Chalobah and Enzo Fernandez. Now, they do play in the Carabao Cup tonight, and that's quite an important game. If they get through to the final and beat Arsenal, they will double in game week 26 against Leeds at home and Everton away, and then they will blank in game week 31. If they don't beat Arsenal, obviously they'll just have the next 3 fixtures as normal, and they will play in game week 31. So just bear that in mind. Basically, if you've got Chalobah and Enzo, they're easy holds, right? Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. There's no need to overthink it. You just keep them for those fixtures, then decide what to do afterwards. I would suggest for most people, when you get to game week 28, they can both probably be sold. From a clean sheet perspective, Arsenal away, Villa away, Newcastle at home, Everton away, City at home is not very good. And from an attacking perspective, it's not great either for Enzo. So if you've got them, obviously hold for 3 weeks. If they don't double and you don't own them, I don't think there's a desperate need to bring Chelsea players in. Now, if you've got a problem in your defence and you want to replace someone or the same situation in midfield, then by all means go for them as a short-term move. But you are going to have to use another transfer on them pretty quickly afterwards. I don't think Chalobah or Enzo are anywhere near essential. So you've got a midfield problem. You need to bring someone in. Someone nice and cheap at 6.8 million. By all means, get Enzo. But when you get to 28, you are going to be moving him on again. So if you don't think you're going to have the transfers to deal with that, it might be better to go for a longer term pick instead. Like Ismail Assar, for example, is a little bit cheaper, might be on penalties, has got good fixtures from now until kind of game week 30. So just keep that in mind. If they do double in 26, so let's say they do go through against Arsenal, these are probably the first two players that I would look at. Chalobah's the most nailed defender, and Enzo probably the most nailed midfielder as well. And obviously a lot easier to bring in than Cole Palmer. I do think for what it's worth, Cole Palmer might be worth a punt, as I said on yesterday's video, but only in specific scenarios where you can get to him easily. I wouldn't like restructure my squad to bring Palmer in. Enzo's much more accessible and you can trust his fitness at the moment. So if they double, these are the first two I would look at. And obviously then you have to sell them later on because they were blank in game week 31. So yeah, decent picks. Good for the next three, but by no means essential. By the way, just really quickly actually on the centre-back situation, they have recalled Sarr from his loan, I think at Strasbourg. So that is another centre-back to add to the mix. Now I think that Chalobah will continue to be first choice moving forward. I don't think there's any doubts about that. But he did get rested in the Champions League. So I don't think it's impossible that he gets rested for one of the next three. It would probably be Leeds at home in 26 because there's a quick turnaround between Wolves and Leeds. But I suspect he just plays all three. He's had his rest now, and there's no playoff games in the Champions League for Chelsea either, so he should be fine. I just think he's not Van Dijk 100% lock to play every minute. He's like 99% sure, I would say, to play the next three. There's just that small doubt. So unsurprisingly, quite a few people are bringing in Yuri and Timber this week. It's Sunderland at home in game week 25, and if Arsenal beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup tonight, they will then double in game week 26, which will be Brentford away and Wolves away, and that will be followed by Spurs away, Chelsea at home, Brighton away, Everton at home. And if they double in 26, they'll blank in game week 31. So for most people that aren't using a chip in 31, you might have to sell one or two Arsenal, but they're so good, I wouldn't concern yourself about that right now. If they don't double, there's obviously less need to bring in an Arsenal defender, but they're still the best defence in the league, so it's not a bad move either way, I would say. The reason that I wanted to talk about Timber is because on the stream on Sunday, a few people had concerns about whether he could be rested or not. I don't want to be super confident about his minutes because I think it was game week 14 where he got benched against Brentford at home, and I was pretty sure he would play that game and he didn't, so I can't be 100% confident that he definitely starts all matches coming up, but I am 95% confident because they play in the Carabao Cup tonight, and I would not be surprised if Timber starts, but it's Tuesday. Then they don't play again until Saturday, which is the Sunderland game, and that Brentford game is in a midweek game week. So game week 26 is a midweek deadline on Tuesday, but Arsenal don't play till Thursday. So it'll be Tuesday tonight, then Saturday, then Thursday. So I think he's more than capable to play Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, then Sunderland, then Brentford. Then their game on the weekend is FA Cup. It's a home game against Wigan in the fourth round. Arteta will massively rotate in that game. I've got no doubts about that. And Timber will probably be one of the names that misses out. You probably see like a Ben White, Mascara, kind of that's on the right side, and then on the left, maybe Lewis Skelly plays, then someone else at left centre-back. So I don't think Timber will play in that FA Cup game, so then he should play the Wolves game as well. And then you're back to Spurs away. So he should be fine. I think there is not a tendency, but I've thought this myself. When you get to game week 27, the fixtures aren't actually that good. So let's say Arsenal don't double. 27, you've got Spurs away, Chelsea at home, Brighton away, Everton. It doesn't look that great, but then I have to keep telling myself Arsenal are the best defence. They could easily get 2 clean sheets in that 4-game week span, and Timber is due some attacking returns. Honestly, I've said this a few times over the last couple of weeks. I'm delighted that over the last 4 game weeks, Raya has outscored Timber, but honestly, every time I watch Timber, it's a worry. He's up for set pieces, just like Gabriel, etc. And there was a game recently. It was when Saka was fit, so it wasn't game week 24. The amount of times Timber was just in the box and Saka wasn't, I couldn't believe it. So I think Timber is just a really nice pick if you've got the money to spend 6.3 million. In terms of his expected data, by the way, for the attacking stuff, he's got 2 goals, 4 assists from 5.4 XGI. So he is tracking kind of along with his expected data. But I just think you look at that 2 goals from 4.3 XG. This guy is getting chances. A goal is coming. I think if you've got Gabriel, he is the second best defender to buy. The other discussion, I suppose, is it worth, if you can't afford Timber, is it worth going for a different defender instead? Or if you can afford Timber, is it worth going for someone else to save some money? Saliba's only 0.3 million less. I just don't think you can justify that. He's such a boring pick. He might get you bonus, but he's not great for DEFCON. And he's not that great for goal threat. Like, can Saliba score from a corner? Of course he can. But the main threat is usually Gabriel. So I just wouldn't spend 6 million on Saliba. I would really try and find the 0.3 for Timber. I think he is worth it. And I know people see Saliba as much more nailed on, and he probably is. Like, I would expect him to get benched less than Timber, but I think the chances of Timber losing so many minutes that makes Saliba a better pick is so slim. I would just get Timber. The other one who is genuinely a good pick if the minutes are there is Calafiori. Now, if he gets good minutes against Chelsea tonight, I'd be much more tempted by him because he was clearly first choice before he was injured, right? The only issue is they've got Nketiah now. So it's a bit like the Saka situation with Madueke. You know Saka's first choice and he's going to play as much as possible. But any small problem, they'll just play Madueke. Any small problem with Calafiori, and we've seen quite a few small problems with him, they'll just play Nketiah. So if you could guarantee me Calafiori was going to play Sunderland at home in both games in the double, which is quite likely, I think, by the way, if he can stay fit, he's a great pick for 5.6, huge differential, genuine attacking threat. I just would be too concerned about the minutes, I think. So I think he will start all 3. I think the worry with the minutes for him is fitness more than is he going to get dropped or something like that. So Timber, really good pick, whether they double or not. Obviously, you could prioritise a Chelsea or Everton defender if they do double, but Timber's a good pick regardless, and he's definitely the one I would go for outside of Gabriel. Try and get the money if you can. So another defender to consider if you've got a little bit less money to spend is Senesi at Bournemouth, who's 4.8 million. And I actually think if you're looking for a new defender over the next couple of game weeks at 5 million or below, he probably is the one that I would go for. There are other options, like I quite like Matty Cash. I've got Yoki Manderson in my own team as well. They're also worth considering. But Senesi is probably the one that I would bring in. Next 6 game weeks, Villa at home, Everton away, West Ham away, then Sunderland at home, Brentford at home, Burnley away. That looks really nice. They definitely play in game week 31 as well against Man United at home. Now, that's not ideal because most people will have Bruno Fernandes at a minimum. They might even be captaining him in game week 31, depending on which team's blank. But at the very least, you know he'll probably get defensive contributions. So you can get him in for 6 game weeks that look pretty good on paper. And then if you get stuck and have to play him in 31, not the end of the world. And he is great for defensive contributions. 12.48 average per start this season. You only need to hit 10 as a defender for the +2 points. And it really does add up. I know most people are on board with defensive contributions at this point. And I know some people think it's really boring, should be taken out of the game, etc. That's a conversation for another day. But it is so good from someone like him because there is a chance over the next 3 game weeks he will get defensive contributions in every game. And if that happens, that's the same as getting 2 assists over 3 game weeks. So if I told you right now Senesi's not going to keep a clean sheet in any of the next 3, but he's going to get 2 assists, you'd probably be quite happy with that. That's how good defensive contributions are for someone like this. Like bringing him in before Villa at home, I know it doesn't look great, but I think because he's so good afterwards, he's probably the one that I would look at. And I know their away record hasn't been great, but it probably will be helped by the fact they've now played Wolves away. They've got Everton away in 26, which is not terrible. West Ham away in 27, Burnley away in 30. The defensive record will probably look a bit better once they've played those fixtures. So I really like him. I know one question people will have is if I haven't got the money for Senesi, should I go for James Hill instead? 3.9 million. Bournemouth didn't end up buying a new centre-back in the transfer window, and he has started the last 6 game weeks in a row and played the full match in every single one. So he does look like first choice alongside Senesi right now. I think the only thing I can say is I expect he will keep his place, but I can't be 100% sure about it because he hasn't always played when he's been fit this season. So Senesi 100% nailed, and I think worth the extra money. But if you can't afford it, I think James Hill is worth a punt because the fixtures are really good. He's such a good price at 3.9. All I would say is if James Hill was to get benched, I don't think you can be shocked. I don't think it will happen at this point, but I can't rule it out. Whereas with Senesi, I just don't see it happening anytime soon. Senesi is out of contract at the end of the summer. So maybe towards the end of the season, if Bournemouth think they're safe and, well, they're going to be safe, right? There's no concerns about relegation. But if they don't think they can, move up the table anymore to like a European place or something like that, maybe they start trying out other centre-backs rather than playing Senesi if he's going to leave at the end of the season. But I don't think that's a concern right now. So Senesi, if you've got the money, is worth it. But Hill is really looking like a nice punt at 3.9 million if you want to go Bournemouth but don't have 4.8 to spend. Let's talk about Harry Wilson next. I think he's similar to Wirtz in that he's probably in don't buy, don't sell territory. Now, Everton at home in 25 is not a bad fixture. He's only 6.1 million. He's obviously done really well over the last 6 to 8 game weeks and is a good longer term pick as well. So it's not an awful idea to buy him this week. It's just not great that you buy him before Man City away in 26. So I think if you're a non-owner of Wilson, you probably wait until 27, 28 onwards. And by that point, you've got Sunderland away in 27, Spurs at home 28, West Ham at home 29, Forest away 30, and then in the blank, Fulham play against Burnley at home. So that's why I think he's quite a nice medium to long-term pick. I just wouldn't go out of my way to do it this week. In terms of not selling him, well, that's for all the reasons I've just mentioned. Long-term, the fixtures are good. I have seen a few people considering getting rid of him. At first, I was thinking, why? I can't really understand the need to get rid. But I guess the only thing I can think of is you're simply just running out of midfield space. Like, that must be it. Because every time I talk about midfielders, I feel like there's so many options. So let's take my team, for example. Let's say I had Mbeumo and Wilson, right? So let's say this was my midfield. Harry Wilson, Enzo, Mbeumo, Fernandes, Anderson. And I've only got 2 Arsenal in Raya and Gabriel, and I want to bring in Declan Rice. Let's say I've got loads of money in the bank. Well, I don't want to sell Fernandes or Mbeumo or Enzo right now. Anderson's even cheaper at 5.3. So yeah, if I need to get Declan Rice in, maybe Harry Wilson's the one I have to sell simply because there's so many good midfielders and I don't want to sell anyone else. So if you're in that situation, maybe you can get rid of him. But if you're not, I really don't see why you'd want to sell. His minutes continue to be good. He's not been sold in January. I expect him to continue starting moving forward. And he's such a good long-term option. Like, I can see myself buying him. I don't know which game week yet. It will depend on a few other things. But I suspect he could come in 28, 29. Or I might even just buy him in game week 31. So I have got my eye on him. I just don't see the need to get him soon because of Man City away in 26. So by all means, if you're running out of midfield space and there's someone you desperately need, maybe you can justify selling Wilson, but I would not go out of my way to force it. So I'm going to sound like a broken record in this video, but I think it's a very similar situation with Morgan Rogers where he's probably in don't buy territory, but I will come back to that in a second because I don't think it would be awful to bring him in this week. And he's also a don't sell because the next 4 fixtures are not that bad. Bournemouth away, Brighton at home, Leeds at home, Wolves away. Doesn't look too bad on paper. You know he'll start every game and he'll probably play 90 minutes on all of them as well. So he's still quite valuable. That being said, 100,000 FPL managers have sold him this week. And I suspect that's because he's only returned twice in 7 game weeks, which isn't ideal. Someone on the stream on Sunday mentioned to me that his underlying data is not that good. That's why they're looking to sell. But I'll be honest, that data hasn't really changed. He's had quite low goal threat all season in terms of his expected goals per 90, currently sitting at 0.16, and his expected assists is 0.11, so he's not all that creative. That hasn't really changed, but he still finds a way to often get returns. He just hasn't done that recently. So if you've got him, and it's the same problem you've got with Wilson, where you don't know which midfielder to sell, but you need to bring someone else in, then maybe you can justify selling Rodgers. But I think for most people, that is not worth a transfer. If you've already got him in your team, you probably keep him for the next 4. And probably keep him the whole way through because Villa will play in the game week 31 blank against West Ham at home, which is a pretty good fixture. On the don't buy idea, I don't think it's awful to pick him up because, again, he's super valuable in that he always starts, always plays 90 minutes. He plays in the blank. It's a good fixture. But I will say the later you pick him up, the worst he probably gets. Because in 29, it's Chelsea at home, and in 30, it's Man United away. Now, can Morgan Rogers get returns in those 2 games? Of course he can. But if it was game week 29 and you needed a new midfielder, you probably wouldn't buy Rogers. So the more of these good fixtures you lose and the closer you get to game week 29, the more you probably put off buying him. And maybe you just do it in game week 31. If you're on a dead end strategy and you're going to wildcard in 32, maybe you just get him then. I personally, I like Rodgers. And there was a period of time where I was thinking about bringing him in 24. But I'm this constant like push and pull of, he is a good pick. He always plays. He always gets returns. But those underlying numbers are just bad. And I know he can do better than that because he did better last season. But when are we going to see it? Like so many of his returns are like long range shots, which is great, right? You love those kind of goals, but they're not that repeatable all the time. And then I think a couple of his assists recently. That should be much easier to say than it sounds. Some of his assists recently. Why did I say it again? I don't know. Anyway, shut up. Just keep talking. They're like sideways passes from 25 yards and then an absolute banger. Again, not that repeatable. So I think Morgan Rodgers is such a great player and he probably will get returns over the next 4, but I wouldn't be desperate to buy him. I guess that's my position. I don't think he's essential that you bring him in or anywhere close to that. Like, could you go and pick up Sarr for 6.3 million at Crystal Palace with good fixtures over the next 5, potentially on penalties as well? Definitely worth considering. If you don't own Declan Rice and you've got a spare Arsenal slot, you should get him instead. If Chelsea end up doubling in 26 along with Everton, Njai, Enzo, all worth considering. Wirtz from 26, big differential. That's another thing about Rodgers. His ownership is so high. And I almost feel like that's an opportunity to take it on. So I think you can buy him. I don't think it's terrible by all means. I still think he's a good pick, but I would be tempted to go against him. But if I had him, I probably would hold on to him. And I know I always get a comment, you always say don't buy, don't sell, but that is often the case. I've said it before. With a lot of players, that is the case. The decision is always different if you own a player versus if you're thinking about bringing them in. If I had Rodgers, I'm not sure I'd be sat there looking to force him out. But I'm probably not going to look to buy him either. Not right now. This video is starting to become the Bart Simpson say the line meme. Like, just say the line, don't buy, don't sell. But Igor Thiago, I mean, is he quite similar? Probably. I mean, unless you're desperate for a new forward, it is Newcastle away, Arsenal at home. I think the only reason you can maybe justify buying Thiago a little bit more is because the forwards are just not that great. Like, Ekitike doesn't look bad if he keeps playing, but he's a lot more money at 8.8 million versus 7.1. And you know with Thiago that from 27 onwards, he's a really good pick. Nailed on penalties, fixtures are great. So I think with Thiago, you can maybe justify buying him if you need a new forward, like you're being forced into a move. Otherwise, you might as well wait until after the Arsenal game. Like, there's very little justification for buying him right now. Whether you should sell him really depends on how many transfers you're sat with at the moment. So let's say you've already got triple Arsenal in place, you're really happy with who you've got, rest of the team is looking solid, and so you can afford the transfers to sell him to someone else for 2 weeks and then buy him back. Maybe in that situation you can justify it, but even then, which forwards for the next 2 weeks are going to absolutely smash Thiago? Like, Evan Nielsen's a player that people have been looking at recently. I think he will frustrate people. I guess it's Villa at home, Everton away. I mean, any forward you pick is going to have better fixtures than Newcastle away, Arsenal at home. But I'm just not convinced it's worth 2 transfers to put Evan Nielsen in and take him out. Now, you could say, well, Evan Nielsen's got 2 better fixtures next 2 game weeks, and then the fixtures are still quite good afterwards. So he wouldn't have to be sold straight away, and that's fair. But I would rather have Thiago from 27 onwards. You know, I can't even, like, let me just quickly go to forwards who are being brought right now, just in case I'm missing anyone. I suspect that Ekitike's on. Yeah, Ekitike's on. Yeah, fair enough. João Pedro. I completely forgot about him. I'm an idiot. Wolves away, Leeds at home, Burnley at home. He definitely starts 2 of the next 3, maybe all 3. Short-term move, don't mind that, especially if Chelsea double, right, in 26. If they beat Arsenal tonight, absolutely you can take a punt on João Pedro, and maybe in that situation you do sell Thiago. But again, you need to have a lot of transfers. Like, I've got 2, and I've probably got more important things to deal with than to take out a forward I know I would definitely want back. In terms of the rest of the forward list, transfers in this week, like Jared Bowen, I mean, it's fine. Burnley away, Man United at home. Again, I'd rather have Bowen than Thiago for the next 2, but I still think it's quite hard to justify 2 transfers. And with Bowen, you probably don't want him longer term. Like, Liverpool away in 28, City at home in 30, Villa away in 31 is not that great. And then you've got like Krupa Jr., fine if you need an enabler. Calvert-Lewin, Like, these are the forwards being brought in. Calvert-Lewin, Gyökeres, Solanke, Jesus, Abraham. Like, this is what I mean with how bad forwards are. Like, none of these are that great pick. Like, Solanke's just scored twice, fair enough, but it's Man United away, Newcastle at home, Arsenal at home, next 3. I just think for most people, you just don't waste the transfers on selling Thiago, and if you can put off buying him until 27, that's probably what you do. So there weren't that many interesting transfers on deadline day yesterday, but there were a couple that I thought I would mention. One being Strand Larsen, who did end up moving from Wolves to Crystal Palace and only cost 6.1 million in FPL. The problem is Mateta also stayed at Palace. He failed his medical, it looks like, going to AC Milan. So now Glasnow's got 2 options to play that number 9 role, which from an FPL point of view probably means that neither of them is a pick. Because I suspect Mateta will still be first choice, but with Strand Larsen there, he probably gets subbed earlier more often, and there is going to be the odd game where probably Strand Larsen starts instead. So I would probably just not buy either, despite how good the fixtures are coming up between 26 and 30. Now, if one of them gets injured, the other one probably does become a pick. But right now, probably not. There is obviously a knock-on effect as well, and that is to Sarr at 6.3 million, because I think I have mentioned in this video him as an option potentially on penalties. My guess will be that Mateta just takes them if he's on the pitch. He was first choice before. I don't see that changing. There is obviously a chance Sarr keeps them, because he has taken one and scored now, but I think if Mateta's on the pitch, he will take them. I do think, however, that Sarr is probably ahead of Strand Larsen. So if you're looking at Sarr, for 6.3, he's still a good pick anyway, even without penalties. He's nice and cheap. The fixtures are good, decent open play goal threat. There will still be a situation, maybe at times, where he's first choice penalty taker on the pitch. You know, similar to, I don't know, Arsenal, right? Most people assume that Gyökeres is ahead of Saka now, but if Gyökeres isn't on the pitch, then Saka will probably take. Similar situation with Sarr. If Mateta's not on there, I think it'll be Sarr. So Sarr's still a good pick, in my opinion. Strand Larsen, Mateta, I'd probably just ignore both for now. So the only other transfer that looked vaguely interesting yesterday was Tyreek George, who moved from Chelsea to Everton on loan with an option to buy, and he's only 4.8 million in FPL. And in seasons gone by, that would have been really interesting because we would have been struggling for cheap midfielders and we would have been struggling for funds because so many premium players would have been doing well. But at this point in time, there's hardly any premiums worth it. And there's lots of good options around the 5 million price point that you don't have to take a punt on someone like Tyreek George. If he gets the minutes, he could be really great. And I suspect he will play quite a lot, but there is not a guarantee there. Like Dwight McNeil is staying at Everton. They've got Dibbling that can be used wide as well. Obviously, Njai is going to play all the time. There is a chance George comes in his first choice, but is it worth the risk when you can literally get Dewsbury Hall for 0.1 million more in the same team with the same fixtures? Elliot Anderson at 5.3 million. I just don't think George is going to be worth going for. Also, if Everton end up doubling in 26 because Chelsea beat Arsenal tonight, Tyreek George wouldn't even be able to play one of the games because he's on loan from Chelsea. The double for Everton would be Bournemouth at home and Chelsea at home. And he wouldn't be able to play one of those games. And then he would blank in 31. And if they don't end up doubling, Fulham away, Bournemouth at home, Man United at home, Newcastle away next 4, it's okay. But surely you just buy Dewsbury Hall. So if you were looking at him, let's see what happens. Maybe he becomes an option, but I doubt it, unfortunately. If you've enjoyed that video and found it useful, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back with a game week preview tomorrow. Any fallout from tonight's game between Arsenal and Chelsea, including double game week thoughts and stuff like that, will be included in that video. So do not panic if I missed anything in this one. I'll catch you tomorrow.